Welcome to Spotlight. I'm Barclay McConnell, director of the Baum Gallery, and I'm here to talk about the BA/BFA exhibition, which is an exhibition each semester that the students who are graduating in art present their final body of work. It's really exciting time for these seniors. I'm here joined by Patrick Evans, who is going to tell us a little bit about his work. Welcome to Spotlight, Patrick.
Oh, well, my work here is pottery, which I've made as artifacts for an imaginary society, mainly to deal with my beliefs and opinions regarding religious and spiritual beliefs of other cultures and people today. 4 pieces here, all which were made with ceramics.
It's really exciting work. Can you tell us a little bit about what your process?
Iconographic inspiration for these works comes from the ancient pottery of ancient Greece, I should say.
That's really obvious.
Though while it's making it, I tended to draw the figures more like how I would draw with charcoal and graphite pencil. Just my own personal preference, stylistic preferences there.
So you said they're ceramics, but could you tell us a little bit about your process with ceramics?
Well, these are thrown pottery, pieces of pottery. That is, they were made on a throwing wheel, not hand-built.
Thrown on a wheel and not hand-built, because a lot of people don't know much about the ceramic process.
Yes.
You being a ceramic artist, you assume that it's this easy thing, but most people don't know anything about ceramics. So that's helpful for them to know that they're not hand-built, I think.
Yes,
and so you've come from this really complex idea of the iconography here, and you call it Athenian. Tell me about that name.
It's mainly just a play on the Athenian culture, where in the beginning, that's where the main inspiration for the act of drawing on ceramics came from, just changing it to fit a more imagined culture rather than the historical culture.
So you're sort of referring to Athenian pottery, but you've changed it to an I. Is there a reason for the I, or was it just a little shift?
It was just the next vowel.
Yes, the next vowel. Excellent. That's great. That's something that I think will really excite the viewers to understand where that came from. So, well, this is really wonderful work, and we thank you for telling us a little bit about it. We'll be right back with more.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science, become the mayor or something, make the situation better for other people. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm Barclay McConnell, and I'm joined here by Ashley Wilkerson, and she is one of our BA/BFA artists in this exhibition, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her work. Ashley, tell me about this work here.
It is the product of a couple of years of struggle. This work talks about some personal things from me and things that are relatable to a lot of people, especially women, I would say. It is called GAD, and that is an acronym for a medical diagnosis in the DSM-5, which is generalized anxiety disorder, which I have. And I call it that because it tries to give you the experience of what anxiety of any kind can feel like. As you walk in, you will see a slideshow of pictures. They're of me. They're pictures that I took to make me feel good about myself, make me feel beautiful, which, when you suffer from anxiety, it is so hard to keep a good self-image. So you walk in, you see those pictures, and you probably hear a little bit of what's going on right now, but you walk in, you sit down, and you start to hear all of the things that go on in my head. They're not necessarily spoken things, but for the purposes of this, I need to put them into words for people to understand. There are many things that will play in someone's head when they have anxiety. There are negative thoughts, things like, you're not good enough, you'll never be good enough, you're ugly, you're fat, all of these things. And those are the things you'll hear. So that was the kind of experience I want people to have. I want them to understand what it's like to appear one way on the outside, or to feel like you are one way on the outside. But on the inside, it's completely different.
That's a really powerful concept, and I do think it's something that a lot of people will be able to relate to, because people more and more are suffering with anxiety, depression, these kind of things. And then as a college student, it can get exacerbated with the stresses of college life. It's really stressful.
Right.
The wide world is stressful, but so is college life, and you're coming to your senior year with all the stresses that brings, and then culminating with this work that seems like maybe it was somehow healing for you to create. Can you talk about that a little bit?
It was healing for me to create. It was also very painful. I had to take a really long, hard look at myself. What I say to myself on a daily basis, what I think, the way I feel, the way this disorder affects me. Because it's not only a mental illness, it is also a physical illness. It is caused by physical deficiencies of chemicals in the brain. That's what makes depression, and that contributes to anxiety. So those deficiencies can cause all sorts of trouble. You start having intrusive thoughts that won't go away. You can't get on a positive note even if you try. Sometimes getting out of bed is exhausting as running a marathon, to be dramatic about it, but not really, because it does affect people very intensely. Sometimes it can be something that intrudes so far into their lives that they need professional help. So it was a painful process for me. I spent 42 hours creating this soundtrack, this insulting soundtrack that is an accumulation of all the thoughts that occur when I'm stressed. I also took a long time taking photos. I have 120 photos in the slideshow, and I had to take frequent breaks because sometimes I would get so overwhelmed that I could not go on for more than a few minutes. I would take breaks to take a drink, calm down. Sometimes I would start crying. So it was, in a way, it was cathartic, but it was also a little bit hard because, again, it's a long, hard look at yourself.
Yeah, I imagine it would be arduous and some of the hardest work you may have ever done in your whole life. Because a lot of people never take the time to look at themselves and deal with the issues. We all have them. And I think it's really important that you're addressing the subject matter, because in our day and age, there are so many misconceptions about mental illness that people think, oh, just snap out of it. And, you know, that is just one of my pet peeves.
It is one of mine too.
I have many family members who struggle with anxiety and depression, as I'm sure many people who are watching this have the same thing. And they get that a lot from the public, that snap out of it, be positive, and it's not that easy.
It's not that easy. Those feelings that you have on a constant daily basis, they're impossible to control on your own. They're not voluntary.
No.
I don't wake up in the morning feeling like I want to be negative about myself.
And then you feel guilty for feeling that way, and then it exacerbates it.
I do.
Because you're like, I have so much to do, I can't get out of bed, all of that. I know. I empathize
The fear of it can
completely.
even cause the anxiety.
Yes.
The fear of having anxiety can cause it. So it's just, it's an ongoing cycle, and it's an ongoing battle. And when people say things like that, it does get on my nerves, because that's like telling somebody with cancer, well, have you tried not having cancer? Have you tried not having the flu?
Right.
Have you tried not being sick? Well, yeah, I have, actually. It doesn't work. So it takes a lot of help, a lot of self-training, a lot of emotional consideration. And we can't do it alone most of the time, so we need to support each other.
We need to support each other, and I'm really glad you're getting some of the support that you need in this, and that you're sharing this for those who, you know, maybe somebody will come see this and really grasp what you're going through, and maybe it will resonate with them, and maybe they'll go and get some of that support that they need.
I want people to go in and have an emotional experience. I want them to get a glimpse, just a glimpse is enough, of what it's like. because what you experience in there is but a tiny fraction of what depression and anxiety can do to someone. So,
Well, it's wonderful, powerful work, and I'm really glad to get a chance to talk with you about it.
well, thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm Barclay McConnell, and we're talking about the BA/BFA Senior Exhibition at UCA's Baum Gallery. I'm here with Matthew Howard, longtime staff member at the Baum Gallery, who is now graduating as an artist in his own right. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his work, especially the work that is right behind us.
First, I have a desire to be very emotional in my work. I don't like to have work not have emotion, and so using this, the light colors, brilliance, happy, joyful, and then it's spreading outward while the darkness is concaving inward. And this work is of the Holy Spirit and of Jesus Christ and the crucifixion. I've written poetry that is very visceral, and the songs that I sing at church, some of them aren't visceral, and so I decided to write my own poetry that would be very powerful and deep and personal to me. And
So this is all related to your faith?
yes.
Oh, good. Well, that's really interesting to use as a concept. Is all of the work that you have in this exhibition related to your faith?
No, I have Unrepressed, which is a monster-like creature, and he is, his form is being stretched from the back, and his maw is wide open. And the movement of the work, even though it's a sculpture piece, it has very strong outward
Motion?
yes.
And so that's more of a fantastical piece?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. And are there other works?
Yes, I have an abstract piece called Sunset,
Okay.
and it's about several worlds, little to large paintings.
Yes. And they're grouped in an unusual way. I
Yes.
saw this grouping, and so they're spread out more like an installation. So it's a whole grouping of tiny paintings to larger paintings
Yes.
grouped on the wall in an interesting way. Hopefully we'll get a look at those. Well, this work all sounds great. And is there anything more you'd like to tell us about your process, or?
Well, my brain gets scattered. I have stories in my head, and the little paintings are like little stories. And so one of my stories is what I hope to do is have a movie that is representative of the crucifixion and this type of symbolism, and what is usually done in the crucifixion scenes is more physical and emotional in the physical aspects. I want to be more spiritual and show the spirituality of the crucifixion.
In a more poetic way.
Yes.
That sounds like an excellent idea as well. Well, thank you for speaking with us. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm Barclay McConnell, and we're here talking about the BA-BFA exhibition at UCA's Baum Gallery. I'm here with artist Kaylee DeWeese. She is a BFA graduate, soon-to-be graduate, and she's going to talk to us about her final body of work here in this exhibition.
This body of work started because I am the oldest sister of 6, and that has been a huge influence on my life because my dad was frequently gone. He's a truck driver, so I fell into the role of second parent. And when my mom went to the store or when she was at work, I took care of the kids from this age to 15 is the oldest right now. So they are almost more like my kids than my siblings in a lot of ways. So moving away from them was really hard in ways I didn't expect because I craved the independence. I wanted to move out. But then after that, I realized I lost that identifier of the big sister, the caretaker. And without that, I didn't know what to do. I had to form a new identifier for myself. So my new identifier became as a sculptor, as an artist, and specifically metalwork became my new love. So it was kind of a perfect marriage between that identifier that I still have but has become a less important part of my life, and the new one that is my focus right now and the direction I'm taking my life as a separate individual.
That's a really exciting concept, and I think it's universal. And as we move through life, we, change those identifiers, but the transition can be really difficult. Yes. And it's really interesting that you've, noticed that in yourself. A lot of people don't examine themselves so closely, and these important changes, and that you've produced work to honor that change. Did you find it healing in the process somehow?
I really did. For a long time, I avoided examining those feelings too closely, and I didn't make work about it. My previous work has been mostly non-representational. I had never done figurative work or anything like strongly representational before in college. So doing this was a big challenge in that regard, technically, and also emotionally examining everything that I was going through and realizing that it's okay to move forward in an individual way in my life. And moving away, I'm going to move further for grad school, so it's been an interesting process.
I imagine so. How long did it take you to create this work?
A year and a half is how long I've been working on this.
And can you tell us a little bit about the process of working with metal?
Yes. First, I have to sculpt each figure in clay, and then I have to make molds of it, which is usually a plaster mold and sometimes a composite and rubber mold to capture more detail. And then you have to cast it in wax so that they're hollow, and then they're all in pieces. So usually I have to do the arms and legs separately and the torso separately. So they're usually, the largest figure down here was 8 different pieces that I had to cast separately, and then make any alterations or adjustments to the wax after it's cast. And then you have to do a process called gating, which connects wax tubes to each part. So if you're gating a head or a torso, you have to connect the chin to the chest, and sometimes like the shoulders, so that the metal flows smoothly. And then you have to make more molds of it, melt the wax out, pour the metal in, which is my favorite part, is the pour day, it's the best part. And then you have to break the molds out, usually like physically with a sledgehammer, and then get rid of all that, clean all the gates off, and clean all the metal up and weld all the pieces together. And then there are final surface details, changing the color, the texture of the metal.
It's a very physical process.
Yes.
Do you, build up muscles in your upper arms and things like this?
Yeah, you have to be strong to handle all of it. That's
sure.
For sure.
Wielding a sledgehammer, I'm not sure I could do that.
People are usually surprised to know that I do this because I guess I don't look as strong as I feel like I am. I don't know. But yeah, it does take a good bit of physical strength and lugging like 50-pound bags of plaster up and down stairs, or
sure.
mixing large batches for molds and that kind of thing.
Well, a lot of sculptors who work in these types of processes are big, burly men.
That's true.
And to be a diminutive woman in this situation, I think it must be empowering.
It really is. I don't know, I do take a lot of empowerment from it, and it is something, I like a challenge and I like ambitious projects, and that
Obviously.
yeah, so that kind of work is really exciting, and I like the physical aspect of it. It's a release in another way, you know, to get that kind of, I don't know, to have that kind of physicality. And yeah, I'm usually exhausted at the end of the day, but that's how I like it.
But that feels good. You know,
Yeah,
a lot of
it
times,
does.
you know, doing a hard day's work, gardening or whatever, it feels good at the end of the day.
It does.
So do any of these figures represent specific siblings?
They are all specific siblings. They all have, they're all actually going to be here for the opening, so that'll be exciting.
That's wonderful.
And so yes, do you want me to tell you?
Sure, yeah,
Okay,
tell us which.
This is Ella, she's 8. This is Tara, she's 10. This is Kenzie, who's 16, and Emma, who's 1. And then under here is Garrett, who's 15.
Wow. I'm looking forward to getting a chance to meet them all.
I'm excited.
Well, thank you so much for telling us about your work. It's wonderful, powerful work, and I'm glad to hear more about your ideas behind it. Thank you so much. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm Barclay McConnell, Director of the Baum Gallery, and we're here to talk about the BA/BFA Senior Exhibition. And I'm here with artist Josh Hall, and he is going to tell us a little bit about his sculptural work. Can you tell us a little bit about your concept behind these pieces?
Well, really the concept behind most of these pieces is basically the breaking down and getting back to the bare essentials of the actual elements of the material. So that's really...
So they're more abstracted.
They are, for sure. They're definitely abstracted.
And tell me a little bit about your process.
My process, basically I take this wire mesh and I'll cut it into squares or a diamond shaped, and then I'll take it and I'll just start molding it and bending it and kind of, I'll throw it on the ground, I'll stomp on it, I'll use a hammer, I'll take some pliers and I'll twist them, and kind of it'll start taking form. And then when I start seeing that form, I'll kind of just start shaping it in the kind of way.
From there?
Yeah, from there,
So it's heavily manipulated.
Yes, it's heavily manipulated.
But it's all wire mesh.
It's gonna, yes, it's all this wire mesh, and I have some soldering wire in there too.
What made you pick this medium?
Like I said, I wanted something that kind of was natural and kind of stripped down. So that's really the basis of this medium. Is I want it to be void of color, just for that. The stripping down of like emotions, and then getting back to the basics of like kind of, yeah, I guess the emotions.
So stripping, so it's symbolic of a stripping down of emotions, but it's stripping things down to the barest essentials. Well, what an interesting concept. The work is really beautiful, and you wouldn't expect, you know, something made of such mundane materials to end up being so visually interesting and beautiful. And I find that the shadows make, you know, once they look very different when you brought them in a box than when they were hung on the wall. Can you talk about like the how you decided, you know, what would be next to another? Was it just purely visual, like how they look next to each other?
Yeah, it was mainly visual. With this piece here, it's like the cast shadows are kind of. I didn't want the shadows touching each other, so that was very important. And then the shadows on the wall, of course, it didn't matter if they touched, which was I like playing off the cast shadows. Let's see. When I was actually placing these up, it took me a little bit to kind of get the position of them correctly, because some of them are smaller, of course, compared to others. And yeah, it was just kind of, I just kept placing them just randomly until I got this kind of composition, the straight line. Originally, this piece was kind of in a tree formation, and it was really the tree, it was going to be called the Tree of Life, but, and I have like probably 7 or 8 more of these little pieces too, and it was kind of intertwined, but these were the strongest, so I just took them out and then kind of just made it more of a linear aspect. And
Well, interesting. So do they each have individual titles?
No. It was going to be the same piece.
As
This
a
whole
group.
like Tree of Life, you know, kind of a rebirth of just basic stripped down materials into little creatures or little things. I mean, they are kind of individual, I guess, because I mean, this one's,
They do have
it's
individual
kinda like a little
personality.
elephant, you know, this one's kind of demonish, and this one's like a bull, you know, and then there's a little African mask on the end. And so yeah, they kind of are like little individual pieces, but collectively they are. They're really inspired by. I was looking at a lot of Picasso and things like that.
As inspiration?
Yeah, as inspiration, and really that was kind of what was giving me this line quality that I wanted it to bring out.
Well, it's interesting. They can imply certain figures, but they're all, I mean, or certain, you know, animals
Yeah,
or
yeah, things like
creatures
that,
or whatever, but they're also kind of like clouds. You could kind of read whatever you want
You
into
can.
them. That's interesting. So
And
do you-
that's how I see, like when I manipulate the actual material. That's how I see it. You know, I see it just like that. So that's interesting you say that. Yeah, it's kind of.
well, that's great. So do you dominantly work in this material or and as a sculptor?
No, this is the first time I really wanted to work with some wire.
Wire,
Yeah. Well, originally, I guess in the sculpture 1 class, I started building armatures, and I really enjoyed the process of building armature. And so I went back to that idea, kind of stripping down the
Stripping it
idea.
down
Yeah,
again.
take the plaster off, you know, things like that. Just take all that out there and just kind of get back to that.
So it's almost like an elaborate armature.
Yeah, yeah, it really is.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah. And another cool fact about it is they're all kind of held together, like within themselves. So it's not like soldered on there or anything like that. So it's all like tension.
Self-contained.
Yeah, it's all like tension
And tension.
based.
Oh.
So it kind of brings another little.
Well, that
aspect
adds another
there.
layer of interest.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling us about your work, Josh. This has been another episode of Spotlight. Thank you for watching.